The wind, a sigh through skeletal branches. Mornings arrived cold. The sun, a reluctant ember over frost-kissed earth. Clara moved through her orchard, a ghost among ghosts, the scent of decaying apples, a familiar shroud. Her parents' legacy, this orchard, a place whispers called cursed. Fire had taken them. Fire had left the trees barren, many of them. Her heart, too, mostly barren. Then, him, a darker shadow beneath the oldest, most gnarled tree, the one they said grandfather planted. Blood, stark crimson on the gray, frosted grass. A stain spreading. He was a ruin, like the orchard. His breath, a ragged flag. She saw the mark on his wrist, a coiled serpent eating its own tail, ink dark against pale, bloodless skin. Her mind flashed, a shutter click, a reward flyer, crumpled in the dry well of her desk drawer. Wanted, dangerous. The paper felt like brittle ash in her memory. The air thickened. A choice, sharp as a shard of winter ice, pressed against her throat. Her father's shotgun hung over the hearth, cold and patient. The sheriff was a day's ride, if the lines were up. But the lines were often down. She knelt. The wind carried the scent of pine, and something metallic. His pain. Her own. The orchard watched, its silence absolute, ancient, waiting. Her cabin, a small fist against the wilderness. Inside, the flyer. She smoothed its creases. The face, younger, harder. The serpent tattoo, undeniable. $10,000. Enough to leave. Enough to burn the rest of the cursed orchard down and walk away clean. Or so the world would say. She looked out the window. The man was a dark shape against the bruised dawn. Another life, already half spilled onto her blighted land. His gun lay beside him, a piece of cold, lethal metal, an extension of the world that hunted him, the world she'd shunned. She went back out. The air bit her cheeks. He hadn't moved. His life, a flickering wick. She picked up the gun. Heavy. Cold. It felt like a dead thing in her hands, a piece of the fire that had consumed her past. She walked, not towards the house, not towards the road, but deeper into the orchard, to the place where the fire had burned hottest, where nothing had grown since. Her spade bit into the hard, charred earth. She dug. Not deep, just enough. She laid the gun in the shallow grave, its metal snout pointing towards the dead heart of the burned section. She covered it. Earth on metal. A burial. His past. Perhaps a piece of hers too. The soil felt different here, still holding the memory of heat, of loss. She didn't look back at him. Not yet. She dragged him, a dead weight, his head lolling, towards the old apple shed. Not the house. Too close. The shed was damp, smelling of earth and forgotten harvests. She laid him on a bed of old sacks, the rough burlap scratching. His skin was cold, too cold. Inside her cabin, water heated on the stove, steam clouding the small window. She gathered herbs, old knowledge from her grandmother. For wounds, for fever, for holding on to life. Stitching his torn flesh was like mending old leather, tough and unforgiving. His blood stained her hands, her apron, a strange baptism. He flinched, groaned, but did not wake. She worked by the dim light of a kerosene lamp, its glow soft on his harsh features. The serpent on his wrist seemed to watch her, days blurred into a rhythm of care. Broth, bandages, watching him breathe. He was a secret she kept from the sky, from the wind. When he finally woke, his eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held no recognition, no thanks, just a deep, animal weariness. He watched her, silent. The orchard, too, seemed to hold its breath, wrapped in an early autumn quiet. The wind carried the scent of rain, a promise. A week passed. The man spoke no words. She spoke few. Her name, his silence was a wall. But the orchard, it began to change. A hesitant green, on a branch she'd thought long dead. A single, defiant apple blossom, out of season, a pale star against the gray wood. Clara noticed these things. Small miracles. Or perhaps she was just noticing again. At night, from the shed, she heard him. Not words. Weeping. low, broken sounds, like an animal caught in a trap. The sounds burrowed into her, found echoes in the hollow spaces the fire had left. She lay in her own bed, listening. The curse on the land, her parents' sorrow, her own frozen grief, it felt less absolute. The man's pain was a raw, living thing. It made her own feel like an old scar, still tender, but no longer bleeding. One morning, the air was clear, the light golden. She found a small carved bird on the threshold of the shed. Whistled out of a piece of fallen apple wood. Rough, imperfect. He was nowhere to be seen. Then she saw him, standing at the edge of the trees, looking, just looking. As if he'd never seen a tree bud before. He began to follow her, a shadow at first. Then, closer. He watched her prune the deadwood, her shears snapping in the crisp air. His hands, scarred and restless, twitched. One afternoon, she held out a pair of shears. He looked at them, then at her. His eyes, still guarded, but something flickered there. Doubt? A question. He took them. His first cuts were clumsy, too harsh. She didn't correct him. He learned by watching, by feeling the wood. Soon, a rhythm developed between them. Snip, drag, burn. The dead branches piled up, a pyre of past neglect. He moved with a quiet intensity, his silence no longer a wall, but a space between them. A space where understanding could grow, like the tentative new leaves on the trees. He never spoke of his past. She never asked. The work was their language. The healing of the orchard, their shared prayer. His presence, once a threat, now felt necessary, like rain after drought. The scent of applewood smoke from their small fires was clean, cleansing, not like the other fire, never like that. He ate the food she left, slept in the shed, worked beside her. His silence became a form of apology, she thought. His labor, a kind of penance. The orchard breathed. Color returned to its cheeks. Russet, gold, a defiant blush of late green. Trees she had given up on unfurled new growth, their limbs reaching for the sun like supplicants. It was as if his raw, wounded life force was seeping into the soil, coaxing forth what the fire, what her grief, had suppressed. She remembered the night of the fire, the smell of smoke, sharp and greedy, the screams, her own, a child's terror swallowed by the roar. Waking in a neighbor's arms, the orange glow painting the sky, devouring her world. After, the orchard was a place of ash and accusation. She'd tended it out of duty, a grim haunting. Now, walking its rows, she felt a different haunting, a softer one. The presence of the man, his silent work, had disturbed the old ghosts, ushered in something new. Hope, perhaps. A fragile thing, like the first ice on a pond. He moved through the trees with a strange grace, a man finding his roots in alien soil. He was still a fugitive, still dangerous, the world would say. But here, in her blighted Eden, he was just a man, mending, being mended. The serpent on his wrist was often smudged with dirt, softened by honest labor. Then the wind changed. It carried a different sound, not the rustle of leaves or the call of a distant hawk. Dogs, the baying of hounds, faint at first, then clearer, closer. A cold dread trickled down Clara's spine. The world, the one she'd buried with his gun, was sniffing at their sanctuary. She looked at the man. He'd heard it too. His face, already lean, sharpened. The hunted look returned to his eyes, extinguishing the small, tentative light she'd seen kindling there. He didn't run. He simply stood, his gaze fixed on the pass through which the road wound, waiting. The reward flyer, still in her drawer, felt like a burning coal. She had chosen this path, hidden him, tended him, let his presence reawaken her land, her heart. Now, the bill was coming due. The fragile piece of the orchard shattered. The new buds seemed to tremble on their branches. The air grew heavy again, pregnant with old fears, new dangers, fire, or something worse. Betrayal. The taste of it, metallic and bitter, like blood. Or like the barrel of a gun she once held. The dogs were louder now, their barks echoing off the stark hills. Then, figures on horseback. 3 of them. The sheriff, a heavy man with a face like worn leather, rode in front. Torches, even in the gray afternoon light, cast flickering, menacing shadows. They looked like wraiths, come to drag souls back to a hell of judgment. Clara stepped out from the cabin, placing herself between them and the orchard, between them and the shed. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a trapped bird. The sheriff reined in his horse, its breath pluming in the cold air. His eyes, hard and assessing, swept over her, the cabin, the surprisingly vital look of the orchard. Clara, he nodded, his voice devoid of warmth. Heard talk, man matching a description. Passed this way. His gaze was a physical weight. She met it. Her hands, clasped behind her back, were steady, or so she hoped. Just me here, Sheriff. Like always. Her voice, a thin thread, but it didn't break. He wasn't convinced. Mind if we look around? Shed, maybe? The dogs strained at their leashes, sniffing the air, whining. One of them barked, a sharp, accusatory sound, towards the shed. Towards him, the past, a roaring flame, threatened to consume the present. The moment stretched, taut as a bowstring. Her land, her choice, the orchard, vibrant and alive, a testament to the quiet work of 2 lost souls, seemed to hold its breath. Behind her, in the shed, the man would be listening. He would know. She could feel his stillness, his readiness. For what? Flight? A fight he couldn't win? Or perhaps, just acceptance. The fire that took her parents had been swift, merciless. This felt different. A slow burn. A decision that would sear itself into her, whatever she chose. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. Clara, don't make this hard. His hand rested near the butt of his own gun, a casual threat. She thought of the gun she had buried, earth over steel. A prayer for peace. To betray the man now would be to betray the budding life in the orchard, the fragile hope in herself. It would be like inviting the fire back, to finish what it started. Nothing in the shed but old tools, Sheriff. And spiders. Lots of spiders. A small smile, barely there. Unless your man is fond of cobwebs. Her gaze flickered to the section of the orchard where the fire had been worst, the place the gun was buried. Some blight came through again. East side. Took a few trees. Had to burn them. A gamble. A deflection. The sheriff grunted, unconvinced. He looked towards the east side, then back at the shed. The dog still whined, pulling towards it. A bad fire out there years back, wasn't it? He mused, his eyes sharp. Took your folks. Clara nodded. The old pain, a familiar ache. Fire takes what it wants, she said, her voice low. Leaves what it wants too. He studied her face, the quiet resolve there. Perhaps he saw the shadow of her loss, mistook it for something else. Or perhaps he simply grew tired of the silent, stubborn woman and her unlikely orchard. He sighed, a puff of white in the cold. All right, Clara. But if you see anyone at all, he let the threat hang. He gestured to his men. They turned their horses, the dogs reluctantly following. The sound of their departure faded, leaving behind a silence more profound than before. She stood, unmoving, until they were gone from sight. Then she let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The air tasted sweet, clean. She turned towards the shed. He stood in the doorway, a silhouette against the dim interior. His face unreadable. He looked at her. Then he simply nodded. A small movement, but it held the weight of a life given back. The orchard seemed to exhale with her. The leaves rustled. A soft applause. Autumn deepened, painting the orchard in hues of fire and gold, not the fire of destruction, but the warm glow of harvest, of completion. The man stayed. He worked. He seldom spoke, but his presence was a quiet hum beneath the surface of the days. He helped her gather the apples, the few trees that bore fruit offering up their bounty with a surprising generosity. The curse, if ever there was one, felt broken, lifted, not by magic, but by shared silence. by the slow mending of earth and spirit. One evening, as the first snows dusted the peaks, he left a newly carved bird on her doorstep. This one, its wings outstretched, ready for flight. When she looked towards the shed, he was gone. No goodbye. None was needed. He had taken nothing but the healing she'd offered, and left behind an orchard reborn. Clara walked through the trees, the air crisp, the ground firm beneath her feet. The branches, pruned and strong, reached towards the winter sky, promising spring. The fire was a memory now, not a haunting. A scar, yes, but one that told a story of survival, of an unexpected season of growth. And sometimes, in the quiet of the land, you find that the deepest wounds are not tended by the law, but by the earth, and by the silent, steady courage to choose what might yet live.